The moment I saw my son-in-law on that stage, his arm wrapped around a woman who wasn't my daughter, a champagne glass raised high as they called him a $20,000 hero, I knew everything he'd ever told us was a lie. My daughter had given him $50,000 to pay off his debts. He spent it building a fake empire and funding a secret life. That night, I decided to destroy it all. Welcome, everyone. Please like, subscribe, and comment where you are watching from. Quick note: this is a fictional story with dramatized elements. Names and details are imaginary, but the message resonates deeply. So, how did I end up watching my son-in-law kiss another woman on a stage in front of 300 people? Let me take you back to that Saturday evening in October. I never planned to be at the JW Marriott that night. My buddy Hank Morales from the Veterans of Foreign Wars Hall on South Congress needed an extra pair of hands for a charity gala. Some foundation called Bright Future that helps underprivileged kids in East Austin. Free dinner after for volunteers. I figured, why not? I had nothing else going on. Saturday evening, I put on black slacks and a white button-down and drove to the JW Marriott on Congress Avenue. They gave us black aprons at the service entrance and assigned stations. I was on the bar cart, rolling through the ballroom refilling champagne glasses. The room was enormous. Crystal chandeliers, 30-foot ceilings, 300 guests dressed like they had money to burn. A jazz quartet played something smooth near the dance floor. I pushed my cart and stayed invisible. That was fine by me. 35 years teaching history at Travis High School didn't put me in their tax bracket. Around 8:30, the lights dimmed and a spotlight hit the stage. A woman in a red sequin dress stepped to the microphone, thanked everyone for their support, then said something that made my blood freeze. Please welcome our most generous donor of the evening. He has personally contributed $20,000 tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, Craig Mitchell and his partner, Kristen Avery. My hand tightened on the cart handle so hard the metal bit into my palm. Craig Mitchell, my son-in-law. The man married to my daughter Emma for 4 years. The same man who told Emma last month that his student loans were crushing him, that he needed another $15,000 just to stay afloat. He walked up those stairs in a tailored charcoal suit that probably cost more than my truck payment. Beside him, arm linked through his, was a woman I had never seen before. Tall, dark hair swept over one shoulder, emerald green dress catching the light. A diamond bracelet glittered on her wrist. She smiled at him the way Emma smiled at him on their wedding day. Craig took the microphone, thanked the crowd, talked about giving back, community, legacy. The audience applauded. Kristen stood beside him, her hand resting on his lower back, leaning into him like she belonged there, like she had always belonged there. Then he kissed her. Right there on stage, in front of 300 people, under the spotlight. The crowd cheered. Someone whistled, and I stood behind my bar cart, 15 feet away, watching my son-in-law kiss a woman who was not my daughter. The champagne flutes on my cart rattled. I gripped the handle and forced myself to breathe. In through the nose, out through the mouth. The way Diane taught me when my temper used to get the best of me. This wasn't a man sneaking around. This wasn't guilt or shame on his face. This was a man living his real life, openly, proudly, in a room full of people who knew him, and Kristen as a couple. My daughter didn't exist here. For one terrible moment, Craig turned and looked directly at my section of the room. My heart stopped, but his eyes swept past me. I was just another server in a black apron. Invisible. The father of the wife he'd erased from his life. I set the cart against the wall and found Hank near the kitchen. Told him I wasn't feeling well. He asked if I needed a ride. I said no. I just needed air. Outside, Austin's October breeze came off the river, but I barely felt it. I leaned against my truck in the parking lot, staring up at the glowing ballroom windows. Somewhere in there, Craig was still shaking hands, still smiling, still playing the hero. I thought about Emma. Right now, she was probably home in Cedar Park, grading papers at the kitchen table with a cup of tea going cold beside her. She worked 60-hour weeks between teaching and tutoring on the side. Last month, she told me she picked up extra students to help cover expenses. Because Craig said they needed it. Because Craig said his student loans were drowning them. $20,000. He donated $20,000 tonight like it was nothing. While my daughter tutored 7th graders on Saturday mornings for $300 a week, I climbed into my truck. Dashboard clock read 9:47. The drive home to South Congress would take 12 minutes. 12 minutes to decide what to do with what I had just seen. Tomorrow was Sunday. Emma had invited me to brunch. Craig would be there, smiling, shaking my hand, calling me Dad. And I would have to sit across from him knowing what I knew. I could tell Emma right then. Call her. Wake her up. Shatter her world with a phone call. But she wouldn't believe me. Not without proof. She loved him. She trusted him completely. Words from her old man wouldn't be enough to break that. I needed evidence. Hard, undeniable, impossible to explain away evidence. The kind that even love couldn't argue with. I pulled onto Congress Avenue, city lights blurring through the windshield. Tomorrow at brunch, I would sit across from Craig Mitchell and smile. I would shake his hand and eat his food and watch him play the devoted husband. But I would also be watching for cracks. For every lie, every contradiction, every thread I could pull until his entire carefully constructed world came apart at the seams. I gripped the wheel tighter and kept driving. I pulled into Emma's driveway in Cedar Park at 10 the next morning. The house looked the same as always. Red brick, white trim, neat flower beds Emma maintained on weekends. But now everything felt different. The silver Tesla in the driveway, the new landscaping with those expensive river stones along the walkway. Details I'd overlooked before suddenly screamed at me. Emma opened the door before I could knock. She hugged me tight, smelling like coffee and vanilla shampoo. She looked tired. Faint circles under her eyes, the kind that come from grading papers until midnight. Dad, come in. Craig's making his famous eggs. Benedict. I followed her inside, and that's when I started counting. The first thing I noticed was the television mounted above the fireplace. 85 inches. Brand new. The kind with a screen so thin, it looked like a painting. Last time I visited 3 weeks ago, they had a modest 50-inch that worked just fine. New TV? I asked, keeping my voice casual. Craig appeared from the kitchen, dish towel over his shoulder, grinning that wide, confident grin. Hey, Dad. Yeah, just got it last week. 85-inch OLED. You should see football on this thing. It's like being in the stadium. I shook his hand. Firm grip. Eye contact. Not a flicker of guilt. And that's when I saw the watch. A Rolex Submariner on his left wrist. Black face, silver band, the crown logo catching the morning light through the kitchen window. I knew what those cost. $12,000 minimum. Probably more. Nice watch, I said. Craig glanced down like he'd forgotten it was there. Oh, this. Yeah. Treated myself. Had a great quarter at work. Figured I earned it. A great quarter. At a non-profit foundation where his listed salary was $95,000 a year. I said nothing. Just smiled and followed them to the dining table. Brunch was elaborate. Eggs Benedict with hollandaise from scratch, fresh fruit, mimosas in crystal flutes. The table itself was new too. Solid walnut, farmhouse style. Had to be $2,000 at least. Emma saw me looking at it. Craig surprised me for our anniversary, she said, running her hand along the surface. Isn't it gorgeous? Beautiful, I said. We sat down and ate. Craig dominated the conversation the way he always did. Charming, articulate, filling every silence with stories about work. He talked about Bright Future's expansion plans, a new youth center in East Austin, partnerships with local businesses. He talked about it with passion, with conviction. If I hadn't seen him on that stage last night with Kristen's hand on his back and $20,000 flowing from his pocket like water, I might have believed every word. Then Emma said something that made my stomach drop. I transferred another $15,000 to Craig last month, she told me casually, sipping her mimosa. For his student loans. We're trying to get ahead of the interest. I set my fork down slowly. 15,000? Yeah. That brings the total to about 50,000 over the past 2 years. She glanced at Craig with a tired but loving smile. But once these loans are paid off, we'll finally breathe. $50,000. My daughter had given this man $50,000 of her savings. Money she earned, tutoring kids on weekends, taking extra classes to teach summer school, saying no to vacations and new clothes, and every small luxury for 2 years straight. Craig reached across the table and squeezed her hand. Almost there, babe. Another 6 months, maybe less. Then we're free. I looked at his Rolex. $12,000 on his wrist. I looked at the 85-inch TV. $3,000 at least. The walnut table. The Tesla in the driveway. The tailored suit he wore last night. The $20,000 he donated to his own foundation while 300 people applauded. And my daughter thought they were struggling. Business must be going well, though, I said carefully. The new TV, the watch. Things seem comfortable. Craig leaned back. Relaxed. It's been a strong quarter, Walter. The foundation's growing. My bonus this year was solid. I figured we deserve to enjoy it a little, right? Can't be grinding all the time? Emma nodded. He works so hard, Dad. He deserves nice things. I wanted to scream. I wanted to flip that beautiful walnut table over and tell her what I saw. Her husband on a stage with another woman. His lips on someone else's mouth. $20,000 he threw away like pocket change while she counted every penny. But I didn't. Because screaming wouldn't save her. Proof would. Well, I'm glad things are looking up, I said. I picked up my fork and took another bite of Eggs Benedict. It tasted like nothing. Around noon, Craig stood and grabbed his keys from the counter. Sorry to eat and run, he said, pulling on a jacket. Got a meeting with a potential donor. Big fish. Could be a game changer for the youth center. He kissed Emma on the forehead, shook my hand again, and walked out the front door. Through the window, I watched him climb into the Tesla, check his phone, smile at something on the screen, and pull out of the driveway. A donor meeting. On a Sunday afternoon. Right. Emma started clearing plates. I stood to help, carrying dishes to the kitchen sink. We worked in comfortable silence for a moment, the way we used to when she was a teenager, helping Diane after dinner. Sweetheart, I said, rinsing a plate. Have you ever met any of Craig's colleagues? People from Bright Future? She shook her head. Not really. He keeps work and home separate, says it's healthier that way. She smiled. Why? No reason. Just curious. She gave me a look. The same look Diane used to give when she knew I was holding something back. Dad. What's going on? You've been weird all morning. Nothing. I lied. Just tired. Didn't sleep well last night. She studied me for a moment, then let it go. We finished the dishes, and I hugged her goodbye at the door. She held on a little longer than usual. Love you, Dad. Love you too, sweetheart. More than you know. I walked to my truck, climbed in, and sat there staring at the house. My daughter was inside, trusting her husband completely, working herself to exhaustion to fund a lie. And Craig was somewhere in Austin right now, probably with Kristen, spending Emma's money, laughing at how easy it all was. I started the engine. I knew what I had to do next. I needed to find out everything about Bright Future Foundation. Every dollar in, every dollar out. And I knew exactly where to start. I should have waited. I should have gone home, done my research, built my case. But watching Emma clear those brunch plates, humming to herself in that kitchen while her husband was out God knows where with God knows who, something in me broke. Emma, I said, Sit down for a minute. I need to ask you something. She turned from the sink, drying her hands on a dish towel. Something in my voice must have alarmed her, because the humming stopped and her eyes narrowed slightly. She sat at the kitchen island across from me. What's wrong, Dad? Last night. Where was Craig? She blinked. Here. Home. He made popcorn, and we watched that new thriller on Netflix. Why? My chest tightened. He was at the JW Marriott, on a stage, with a woman named Kristen. But he told Emma he was home watching movies. What time did he get home? I asked carefully. He was home all night, Dad. We started the movie around 7:30. She frowned. Why are you asking me this? I took a breath. Part of me screamed to stop, to walk away, go home, find the evidence first. But I looked at my daughter's face, so trusting, so certain, and the words came out before I could stop them. I was at the JW Marriott last night, Emma, volunteering at a charity gala for Bright Future Foundation. Her frown deepened. Okay? Craig was there. Silence. She stared at me, her hands flat on the counter. That's not possible, she said slowly. He was here with me all evening. He wasn't. He was on stage, Emma. They called his name. He gave a speech. He donated $20,000 to the foundation. Emma let out a short laugh. Dad, that's insane. Craig doesn't have $20,000 to donate to anything. We're barely keeping up with his loans. I saw him, with my own eyes, 15 feet away from me. Then you saw someone who looked like him. It was a crowded room, dim lighting. You made a mistake. There was a woman with him, I said. They introduced her as his partner. Her name was Kristen Avery. Emma went very still. Her jaw tightened. I could see her processing, could see the wheels turning. But instead of doubt, what I saw rise in her eyes was anger, and it was directed at me. Kristen is a colleague, she said, her voice flat. She works at Bright Future. Craig's mentioned her before. They do events together for the foundation. That's literally their job. Emma. He kissed her. On stage. In front of 300 people. She stood up so fast her stool scraped against the tile. Stop it. He had his arm around her all night. She was wearing a diamond bracelet. They introduced her as his partner, not his colleague. His partner. I said, stop it. Her voice was rising now, her face flushing red. What are you doing, Dad? What is this? I'm telling you what I saw. You're telling me what you think you saw. At a dark gala where you were pushing a drink cart. She crossed her arms, her body rigid. And now you're in my kitchen, accusing my husband of… What exactly? I'm not accusing anyone. I'm telling you, no. She pointed her finger at me. You're doing what you always do. You never liked Craig. From the very first day I brought him home, you had that look, that skeptical, arms crossed, show me something look. That's not fair. Mom would never have done this to me. The words came out sharp, weaponized. Mom trusted me. Mom respected my choices. Mom would have been happy that I found someone who loves me. The mention of Diane hit me like a fist. Emma knew it would. She'd chosen those words precisely because they would hurt. Your mother, I said quietly, would have wanted me to protect you. Protect me from what? From my husband who comes home every night? Who makes me breakfast? Who holds me when I'm stressed about work? Tears were forming in her eyes now, but they weren't sad tears. They were furious. You don't get to come into my house and tear apart my marriage because you thought you saw something at a party. Emma, please. Just listen. No. You listen. She stepped toward me, her voice cracking. I love Craig. He's my husband. He works hard for us. And I am so tired of you, looking at him like he's not good enough, like I'm not smart enough to choose my own partner. I never said that. You didn't have to. It's in your eyes every time he walks into the room. She wiped her face with the back of her hand. I want you to leave. Sweetheart, now Dad. Please. I stood there, searching her face for any crack in the armor, any flicker of doubt. But all I saw was anger and hurt, and a fierce, desperate need to believe that the life she'd built was real. Okay, I said softly. I'll go. I walked to the front door. My hand was on the knob when she spoke again, her voice barely controlled. And Dad? Don't call me. Don't bring this up again. Not until you have something more than a story about a dark room and a woman you don't know. I turned back. She was standing in the middle of her living room, arms wrapped around herself, tears running down her face. She looked so much like Diane in that moment that my heart nearly stopped. I love you, Emma. She didn't answer. Just turned away and disappeared into the hallway. I heard the bedroom door close, then lock. I stepped outside into the late afternoon sun. Cedar Park was quiet. Neighbors washing cars, kids riding bikes. Normal Sunday. Normal life. Except mine had just cracked open. I sat in my truck for a long time. 5 minutes. 10. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. Emma's words circled in my head like vultures. Mom would never have done this to me. You never liked him. Don't call me. She was right about one thing. She'd told me exactly what I needed to do. Don't bring this up again. Not until you have something more. So I would get something more. I would get everything. Every lie, every dollar, every secret Craig Mitchell was hiding behind that perfect smile. And when I came back to my daughter, I wouldn't come with a story she could dismiss. I would come with proof so overwhelming that even love couldn't look the other way. I started the engine and pulled out of Cedar Park. The sun was setting behind me, turning the Texas sky orange and red. Somewhere in this city, Craig was with Kristen. Somewhere in that house, my daughter was crying alone, and I was going to fix it, no matter what it cost me. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling fan spinning slow circles above me. Emma's words cutting through the dark like broken glass. Mom would never have done this to me. You never liked him. Don't call me. By 2 in the morning, I gave up pretending. I got out of bed, made a pot of coffee, and sat down at the kitchen table with my laptop. The screen glowed blue in the dark house. I typed the words slowly. One finger at a time, the way I always do. Bright Future Foundation, Austin, Texas. The website loaded. Clean design, warm colors, photos of smiling children. Their mission statement talked about empowering underprivileged youth through education and mentorship. There was a photo on the About page that made my jaw clench. Craig and Kristen standing side by side in front of a mural, both smiling broadly. The caption read, Co-executive directors Craig Mitchell and Kristen Avery lead Bright Future's mission with passion and purpose. Co-executive directors. Not employee and colleague. Not even director and assistant. Equal partners, running the whole operation together. I spent 35 years teaching high school history. I taught my students how to find truth in primary sources, how to question narratives, how to follow evidence wherever it led. I never thought I'd use those skills to investigate my own son-in-law, but here I was. I pulled up the IRS website. Every nonprofit in America has to file a Form 990. It's public record. Financial disclosures, salaries, program expenses, everything. I found Bright Future's filing from last year and opened the PDF. The numbers made me sick. Total revenue from donations and grants. $452,000. That's what people gave in good faith to help kids in East Austin. Now, here's where it got ugly. Program expenses, meaning money that actually went to helping children. $36,000. 8%. 8% of every dollar donated reached the people it was supposed to help. The rest went to salaries, travel, office expenses, events, and something listed as consultant fees. Craig's salary was listed at $95,000. Kristen's at $88,000. Combined, just their paychecks ate up over 40% of the foundation's income. The consultant fees were another $60,000, paid to a company called Avery Events, LLC. Avery. As in Kristen Avery. She was paying herself twice. I leaned back in my chair and rubbed my eyes. The coffee had gone cold an hour ago. Outside my kitchen window, South Congress was silent. 3:27 in the morning. The rest of Austin was sleeping. But I couldn't stop now. I went back to the Form 990 and looked at the board of directors. 3 names: Craig Mitchell, Kristen Avery, and someone named Dennis Park. 3 people overseeing nearly $500,000 with almost no accountability. The minimum the IRS requires is 3 board members. They had exactly 3. No independent oversight. No external auditors listed. This wasn't a charity. It was a machine designed to funnel money from generous people into Craig and Kristen's pockets. I opened a new tab and searched Craig's name along with student loans. It took some digging. Public records aren't always easy to navigate at 4 in the morning, with shaking hands and blurry vision. But I found it through the county assessor's office records linked to Craig's parents' property filings. A document from 2019. A letter of satisfaction from Craig's student loan servicer. Paid in full. Balance 0. Signed and dated March 15, 2019. 2 years before Emma started giving him money, I stared at the screen. 2 years before. Craig's loans were paid off in 2019. Emma started sending him money in 2021. She told me this morning the total was $50,000 over 2 years. $50,000 for debts that didn't exist. He looked her in the eyes and told her he was drowning. He let her work double shifts, tutor kids on Saturdays, skip vacations, count every grocery bill. He watched her sacrifice everything. And he took her money to fund a lifestyle with another woman. I closed the laptop and pressed my palms flat against the kitchen table. My hands were trembling. Not from cold. From fury. I thought about what I had so far. The gala. The kiss. The donation. The IRS filings. The paid-off loans. It was damning. But it was also all public record. Things Emma could dismiss as coincidence or misunderstanding. She'd already proven she could rationalize anything where Craig was concerned. I needed more. I needed someone who could dig deeper than public databases. Someone who could follow the money in ways I couldn't. Someone with cameras and subpoena power and the resources to tear apart every layer of Craig Mitchell's carefully constructed lie. And then I remembered something. 6 months ago, I was watching the 10 o'clock news on KXAN. They ran an investigative segment about a construction company scamming elderly homeowners in Round Rock. The reporter who broke the story was a guy named Ray Callahan. I remembered because the piece was brilliant. Detailed, methodical, devastating. The company shut down within 2 weeks of it airing. The owner faced criminal charges. Ray Callahan. KXAN. Investigates. I opened my laptop again and searched his name. Found his KXAN profile page. 15 years in investigative journalism. Awards from the Texas Associated Press. Specialties included nonprofit fraud, financial crimes, and public corruption. Nonprofit fraud. My heart was pounding now. I found his professional email and his office phone number. It was 4:47 in the morning. Too early to call. But I could write an email. I stared at the blank compose window for a long time. Then I started typing. Mr. Callahan. My name is Frank Dawson. I believe a local nonprofit called Bright Future Foundation is defrauding donors. I have financial evidence suggesting massive misuse of funds. My son-in-law is one of the directors. I would like to meet with you as soon as possible. Please call me at your earliest convenience. I typed my phone number, hit send, and closed the laptop. The kitchen was quiet. Dawn was still an hour away. I sat there in the dark, my empty coffee mug between my hands, and waited for the sun to come up. By 9 o'clock Monday morning, My phone hadn't rung. I made breakfast. Eggs, toast, black coffee. I checked my email twice. Nothing. I tried to read the newspaper but couldn't focus on a single word. At 9:32, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. Austin area code. I picked up before the second ring. Mr. Dawson? This is Ray Callahan, KXAN. I got your email. His voice was calm, measured, professional, Bright Future Foundation. I've actually had my eye on them for about 8 months. I've been looking for someone with inside knowledge. A pause. Can you come to my office this morning? I was already reaching for my truck keys. I'll be there in 20 minutes. The KXAN Studios building sat on Guadalupe Street near the University of Texas campus. A blocky structure with satellite dishes on the roof and the station logo mounted above the entrance in bold red letters. I parked in the visitor lot and walked through the front doors at 9:53. The receptionist pointed me toward the second floor. I took the stairs, too restless for the elevator. The newsroom was an open space, buzzing with monitors, ringing phones, and people moving with purpose. At the far end, behind a glass partition, a man stood up from his desk and waved me over. Ray Callahan was about 48. Lean build, salt and pepper hair cropped short, sleeves rolled up on a blue dress shirt. His desk was a controlled chaos of manila folders, printed spreadsheets, and 3 monitors showing different data feeds. He shook my hand with a firm grip and gestured to a chair across from him. Coffee, he offered. No thanks. I've had enough to keep me up for a week. He sat down and pulled a thick folder from the stack beside his keyboard. The tab read Bright Future Foundation in black marker. He opened it and spread several documents across the desk between us. Mr. Dawson, I'm going to be straight with you. I've been investigating Bright Future for 8 months. We've had tips from donors who felt something was off. Small things at first. Events that seemed too lavish for a youth charity. Expense reports that didn't add up. Staff turnover that raised eyebrows. He tapped the folder. But I've been hitting a wall. I can see the smoke. But I couldn't get close enough to confirm the fire. Then your email landed in my inbox this morning, and everything clicked. What do you have so far? I asked. Ray turned one of his monitors toward me. A spreadsheet filled the screen. Rows of transactions highlighted in yellow and red. Over the past 2 years, Bright Future has received approximately $900,000 in total donations. Their stated program expenses, meaning money that actually helps kids, totals about $72,000. That's 8%. The rest goes to salaries, travel, entertainment, event costs, and payments to shell companies. Avery Events LLC, I said. Ray looked at me with raised eyebrows. You found that already. IRS Form 990. It was listed under consultant fees. He nodded. A hint of respect crossing his face. Good. You're thorough. Avery Events is registered to Kristen Avery's home address. It's received over $120,000 in payments from Bright Future in 2 years. On top of her $88,000 salary. He leaned forward. And here's the part that brings it into federal territory. He pulled up another document. Bank records. Partially redacted, but with key figures visible. Craig Mitchell has a personal checking account at Frost Bank, separate from any joint accounts. Over the past 18 months, approximately $180,000 has been transferred into this account from Bright Future's operating funds. The transfers are disguised as reimbursements, bonuses, and consulting payments, but the amounts don't match any legitimate expenses. $180,000. I felt the number settle into my chest like a stone. He's been stealing from the foundation, I said. He's been stealing from everyone. Ray pulled up a series of photos on his second monitor, Kristen Avery's Instagram profile. Posts from restaurants, trips, shopping sprees. Kristen Avery rents a penthouse apartment on Rainy Street, $3,500 a month. The lease is in her name, but the rent payments come from Craig's Frost Bank account. The same one, receiving the foundation's money. He scrolled through more photos. Kristen on a beach in Cabo. Craig and Kristen at a rooftop bar downtown. A selfie from what looked like a first-class airline cabin. His credit card statements show $8,000 to $12,000 a month in entertainment expenses. Restaurants, hotels, shopping, all charged to cards linked to accounts funded by the foundation. And by my daughter, I said quietly. Ray looked at me. His expression shifted from professional to human. Tell me about your daughter. So I did. I told him about Emma. About the $50,000 she'd given Craig over 2 years for student loans that were already paid off. About the double shifts and the weekend tutoring and the sacrifices she made because she believed they were struggling. About the brunch yesterday where Craig wore a $12,000 watch and talked about being almost free of debt. Ray listened without interrupting, making notes on a legal pad. When I finished, he set his pen down. Mr. Dawson, what you're describing, taking $50,000 from your daughter under false pretenses, that's theft by deception. What he's doing with the foundation, that's wire fraud, tax evasion, and embezzlement. We're not talking about a cheating husband anymore. We're talking about a criminal enterprise. What do you need from me? I asked. Honestly, you've already given me the missing piece. The personal angle. A real victim with a real story. My editors have been waiting for something that makes this more than just numbers on a spreadsheet. He closed the folder. I need 10 days. 10 days to finish the investigation, verify everything twice, get legal to sign off, and produce the segment. It'll air on a Saturday evening. Prime time. 6:02. 10 days, I repeated. Can you hold off that long? I know you want to tell your daughter, but if Craig gets wind that someone's digging, he'll run. He'll move money, delete records, maybe even disappear. I've seen it happen. I thought about Emma. 10 more days of her living the lie. 10 more days of Craig kissing her goodbye in the morning and spending her money on Kristen in the afternoon. I can hold off, I said. But I need something from you in return. Namit. The broadcast date. The exact time. I want to be there when he sees it. I want him sitting in my living room when his face appears on that screen. Ray studied me for a moment. Then he smiled, thin and sharp. Saturday the 19th. 6:02 p.m. KXAN Channel 36. You set the stage. I'll light the match. We shook hands. I stood to leave, then turned back. One more thing. He has a mother. Gloria Mitchell. Lives in a care home in San Marcos. Emma thinks Craig sends her $500 a month. I'd like to find out if that's true. Ray made a note. I'll look into it. But if I had to guess based on everything else, she hasn't seen a dime. Probably not. He looked up. Go see her yourself if you can. First-hand testimony is powerful. If this ever goes to court, and it will, a jury needs to see real people, not just spreadsheets. I nodded. Thank you, Ray. Don't thank me yet. Thank me when it airs. I left the building and walked into the late morning sun. Guadalupe Street was alive with college students and coffee shops and people living normal Tuesday lives. I stood on the sidewalk for a moment, letting the warmth hit my face. 10 days. I had 10 days before the broadcast. 10 days to gather every last piece of evidence I could find. And there were still places I needed to go. Craig's office. His mother's care home. Places where his lies lived and breathed and could be pinned down. I climbed into my truck, pulled out my phone, and searched Bright Future Foundation office address. 712 Congress Avenue, Suite 304. Friday. I'd go Friday when Craig would likely be out. For now, I had one other stop to make first. San Marcos. Gloria Mitchell. Room number unknown. But I'd find her. Friday morning I put on my best khakis and a button-down shirt. The kind I used to wear to parent-teacher conferences. I wanted to look like a man with money to give. A retiree with a pension and a generous heart. The kind of person Bright Future Foundation was designed to exploit. 712 Congress Avenue was a glass and limestone building in the heart of downtown Austin. 5 stories, modern architecture, a coffee shop on the ground floor. I rode the elevator to the 3rd floor and stepped into Suite 304. The office was nicer than I expected. Polished concrete floors, exposed brick walls, large windows overlooking Congress Avenue, a reception area with leather chairs and a glass coffee table covered in glossy brochures. And there, directly behind the front desk, mounted on the wall in a sleek black frame, was a photograph that stopped me in my tracks. Craig and Kristen, standing shoulder to shoulder in front of a crowd of children, both beaming at the camera. Beneath the photo, a brass plaque read, "Our leadership team, Craig Mitchell and Kristen Avery, co-executive directors." Below it hung 3 more framed photos. Craig and Kristen at a ribbon-cutting ceremony. Craig and Kristen shaking hands with Austin's mayor. Craig and Kristen at what looked like a holiday party, her in a red dress, his arm draped over her shoulders, both holding champagne glasses. Not a single photo of Emma anywhere in this building. Not a mention, not a trace. My daughter had been completely erased from this version of Craig's life. "Good morning. Can I help you?" I turned. A man in his early 40s stood behind the reception desk. Short black hair, friendly face, dress shirt with the sleeves cuffed neatly. His name badge read Dennis Park, Program Coordinator. "Hi there." I extended my hand. "Frank Dawson. I'm interested in learning more about Bright Future. Possibly making a donation." Dennis's face lit up. "That's wonderful. Please, have a seat. Can I get you some coffee? Water? Coffee would be great." He disappeared into a small kitchen and returned with a ceramic mug. We sat in the reception area, and he launched into his pitch. The mission, the programs, the impact they were making in East Austin. He spoke with genuine enthusiasm. I got the feeling Dennis actually believed in what the foundation was supposed to be doing. He probably didn't know where the money really went. "So," I said casually, "tell me about the leadership here. I like to know who's running things before I write a check." "Oh, absolutely." Dennis gestured toward the wall of photos. "Craig and Kristen are incredible. They founded Bright Future together about 4 years ago. Craig handles the business side, fundraising, donor relations, financial strategy. Kristen runs events and community outreach. They're a great team. They look close," I said, nodding toward the holiday party photo. Dennis grinned. "Oh yeah, they're together. Have been for about 2 years now. Maybe longer, actually. They're one of those couples that just works, you know? Same passion, same vision. They finish each other's sentences in meetings." My coffee tasted like acid. I took another sip anyway. "That's nice," I said. "Must be good working with people who are happy." It really is. Last month at our staff Christmas party, Craig gave this toast. He raised his glass and called Kristen the love of his life. Dennis shook his head, smiling at the memory. Everyone clapped. A couple people cried. It was really sweet, the love of his life. I set my mug down carefully because my hand was starting to shake. "Any wedding bells on the horizon?" I asked, forcing a chuckle. "We're all betting on it." Craig's been hinting. Kristen's been looking at rings online during lunch breaks. Dennis laughed. "I'd give it 6 months. Tops. Looking at rings. While still legally married to my daughter." I breathed through it. Stayed in character. "Is Craig around today?" "I'd love to meet him in person." Dennis shook his head. "Unfortunately, no. He and Kristen flew to Cabo San Lucas on Wednesday. They do a retreat every quarter to plan strategy for the next season. They'll be back Monday." Cabo. A quarterly retreat. On foundation money, no doubt. While Emma graded papers and stretched her paycheck to cover groceries. "That's too bad," I said. I would have loved to shake his hand. I can schedule you a meeting for next week if you'd like. That would be great. Let me check my calendar and give you a call. I stood, shaking Dennis's hand. One more question, Dennis. And forgive me if this is too personal. Is Craig married? I just want to know who I'm dealing with. Family man. Bachelor. That sort of thing. Dennis laughed easily. Not married yet. Single until Kristen came along. Now he's completely devoted to her. I've worked with him 3 years, and I've never seen him so happy. 3 years. Dennis had worked with Craig for 3 years, and never heard the name Emma Dawson. Never knew his colleague had a wife at home. Never suspected that the man who called Kristen the love of his life went home every night to another woman. Well, I said, he sounds like a good man. I look forward to meeting him. You'll love him, Dennis said warmly. Everyone does. I smiled, thanked him for his time, and walked out of Suite 304. The elevator doors closed, and I leaned against the back wall, pressing my palms flat against the cold metal. My reflection stared back at me in the polished doors. An old man in khakis with fury burning behind his eyes. I walked out of the building onto Congress Avenue. Friday afternoon. Foot traffic swirled around me. Tourists heading to the Capitol. Office workers grabbing lunch. Musicians setting up for evening gigs on 6th Street. Normal Austin chaos. I stood on the sidewalk and pulled out my phone. I had what I needed from this place. Craig and Kristen were a public couple. The entire office knew them as partners. Nobody knew Emma existed. Craig was planning to propose to Kristen while still married to my daughter. But there was one more stop. One more piece of evidence that Ray said would matter most in court. First-hand testimony from a real victim. Not a spreadsheet. Not a screenshot. A person. Tomorrow morning, I was driving to San Marcos. 45 minutes south on I-35. Shady Oaks Care Home. Gloria Mitchell. Craig's mother. The woman Emma believed was receiving $500 a month in support from her devoted son. I had a feeling I already knew what I would find there. But I needed to hear it from Gloria herself. I needed to see that room with my own eyes. I pocketed my phone and walked to my truck. One more day. One more piece of the puzzle. Then I would have everything. Shady Oaks Care Home sat on a dead-end road off the main highway in San Marcos. A single-story rectangle of faded beige stucco, with a flat roof and narrow windows. The parking lot was cracked asphalt, with weeds pushing through. A hand-painted sign near the entrance read, "Visiting hours 9 to 7 daily." I parked under the one tree in the lot and grabbed the small bag I'd packed that morning. Oranges, crackers, chocolates, a crossword puzzle book. Small things. The kind of things you bring when you don't know what else to do. Inside, the lobby smelled like industrial cleaner and something stale underneath. The linoleum was yellowed. A television played a game show on mute. The receptionist barely looked up from her phone. "Who are you here to see?" "Gloria Mitchell, room 8. Down the hall, 4th on the right. The corridor buzzed with flickering fluorescent lights. Doors stood open on both sides. Small rooms with single beds and televisions on rolling carts. I found room 8 and knocked softly. "Hello? Who's there?" I pushed the door open. The room was barely 10 feet across, a single bed with a faded quilt. A nightstand with a glass of water and a pill organizer. A small dresser with 3 framed photographs. A window overlooking the parking lot. A ceiling fan hung motionless overhead. One blade cracked. The air was warm and still. Gloria Mitchell sat in a white plastic lawn chair by the window. The kind you buy at a hardware store for $8. She was small, maybe 5 feet tall, thin as paper. White hair in a loose bun. Cotton house dress under a cardigan despite the warmth. She looked up with pale blue eyes, startled but not afraid. Just surprised. Like visitors. Were something that happened to other people. "Mrs. Mitchell," I said gently. "My name is Frank Dawson. I'm Emma's father, Craig's father-in-law." Her face transformed. Uncertainty dissolved into relief, as if she'd been waiting for someone, anyone, to walk through that door for a very long time. Emma's father. She gestured to the bed. Please sit. I don't get visitors. I wasn't expecting anyone. I set the bag on the nightstand and sat on the bed's edge. I brought you a few things. Her eyes welled up. That's so kind. Mrs. Mitchell. When's the last time Craig came to see you? Her hands twisted together in her lap. 8 months. Maybe 9. He called on my birthday in June. 5 minutes. Said he was busy. What about Emma? Does she call? Gloria's face crumpled. She used to. Every Sunday. But 6 months ago, Craig told me to stop answering. He said it would upset her to know how I was really doing. So I stopped picking up. Craig had isolated his own mother from the one person who actually cared. Mrs. Mitchell, I said carefully. Emma told me Craig sends you $500 a month for your care and medication. Gloria stared at me. Her mouth opened, then closed. $500 a month? She repeated. Yes. Emma believes Craig supports you financially. Gloria shook her head slowly. I haven't received a penny from Craig. Not 1 cent. I pay for this room with Social Security. $1,100 a month. That's everything I have. Nothing left for medications beyond basics. Nothing for anything. I looked at the broken ceiling fan. Does that work? No. Broke in July. I asked them to fix it. She pulled her cardigan tighter. The window doesn't seal either. In winter, the cold comes right through. A broken fan. A drafty window. $1,100. And not a single cent from the son, embezzling hundreds of thousands. Did Craig ever promise you anything? I asked. She looked at me without anger. Only quiet. Resigned. Sadness. He said he'd move me somewhere nicer. Closer to Austin. Said that last Christmas. He also promised a new television. She nodded toward the ancient set on the dresser. The color is gone. Everything is green and pink, but it still turns on. I stood up and walked to the window, pressed my hand against the glass, and felt the gap in the seal. In winter, cold would pour through like nothing was there. I'm going to come back, I said, turning to face her. And I'm going to bring Emma. She doesn't know about any of this yet. But she will. Gloria's chin trembled. Is Emma all right? Craig told me she was too busy to talk. I worried. Emma is fine. She's strong. And when she learns the truth, she'll want to see you. I promise. You're a good man, Frank. Gloria reached out and took my hand. Fragile grip, bird-like. Emma is lucky to have you. I squeezed her hand and let go. Walked out of room 8, down the flickering hallway, past the receptionist, into the parking lot. The sun hit my face and I stood there breathing hard, trying to control the rage in my chest. $1,100 a month. A plastic lawn chair. A broken fan. A television with no color. And her son was in Cabo San Lucas with his girlfriend, spending stolen money on cocktails and first-class flights. I pulled out my phone and called Ray. I just left Gloria Mitchell. She hasn't received a dime. Craig hasn't visited in 8 months. He told her to stop answering Emma's calls. She's living in a room without working air conditioning, sitting in a plastic chair. Ray was quiet. Then, did she say that on record? She'll say it to anyone who asks. Good. That's the human element, Frank. That's what makes a jury weep. A pause. 8 more days. Saturday, the 19th. 6:02. You ready? I looked back at Shady Oaks. At the faded stucco and the cracked parking lot and the window of room 8 where Gloria sat alone. I'm ready, I said. Set it up. I hung up and climbed into my truck. 8 days. 8 more days of Craig living his lie. 8 more days of Emma working double shifts for a man who called another woman the love of his life, 8 more days of Gloria sitting alone in that plastic chair, waiting for a son who would never come. But on the 9th day, the truth would come for Craig Mitchell like a freight train, and I would be there to make sure he couldn't outrun it. Monday morning, the phone rang at 8:15. Ray's number. "We're locked in," he said. Saturday the 19th, 6:02 p.m. The segment runs 12 minutes. My editor signed off this morning. Legal cleared it Friday. "It's happening, Frank." I sat at my kitchen table, coffee in hand, and let the words settle. 12 minutes. That's all it would take to dismantle everything Craig Mitchell had built. 12 minutes of footage, interviews, financial records, and Ray's calm, devastating narration. 12 minutes that would end a marriage, destroy a career, and likely put a man in prison. "How does it open?" I asked. Cold open on the bright future Gala footage. We had a cameraman there for B-roll that night. Craig on stage, the donation, the speech. Then we cut to the financials, the 8%, the shell company, the personal transfers, then donors reacting to the numbers. Then Gloria. Gloria? I sent a crew down to San Marcos on Thursday. She agreed to an on-camera interview. She was incredible, Frank. Quiet, dignified, heartbreaking. When she talked about the broken fan and the phone calls, she stopped answering. My cameraman had tears in his eyes. I closed my eyes. That fragile woman in her plastic chair, telling her story to a camera crew in that tiny room. Brave. Braver than she probably knew. "What do you need from me?" I asked. "Nothing more. You've given me everything. The personal testimony, the financial connection to your daughter, the inside details from the office. All I need now is for you to do whatever you're planning to do on Saturday night." He paused. "You said you wanted Craig in your living room when it airs." "That's right. Then get him there. The rest is on me." I hung up and sat in silence for a long time. 5 days. I had 5 days to convince my daughter and her husband to come to my house at exactly the right time. After what happened 2 weeks ago, after Emma threw me out and told me not to call, that wasn't going to be easy. I needed bait. Something Emma couldn't refuse. Something that would bypass the anger and the hurt and speak directly to her heart. I stood up and walked to my bedroom. Opened the top drawer of the dresser where I kept the things that mattered most. Beneath folded undershirts and a cigar box of old coins, wrapped in a square of blue velvet, was Diane's ring. I carried it back to the kitchen and set it on the table. Unwrapped the velvet carefully. The diamond caught the morning light and threw tiny rainbows across the wall. A 1.2-carat solitaire in a platinum setting. I bought it in 1982 with 3 months of teaching salary saved in a jar under the bathroom sink. Diane wore it every day for 31 years until the arthritis got too bad and she asked me to keep it safe. On her last day in the hospital, she'd held my hand and said, "Give it to Emma when the time is right. She'll know what it means." I'd been waiting for the right time. Birthdays came and went. Christmases. Emma's wedding. I kept thinking the moment would present itself naturally, but it never quite did. And now I was going to use it as bait to lure my daughter into the hardest night of her life. "I'm sorry, Diane, but this is the right time. Not the way either of us imagined, but the right time nonetheless." I picked up my phone and stared at Emma's contact. Her photo smiled back at me from the screen. Taken last Thanksgiving, her hair pulled back. Flour on her cheek from making pie crust. She looked happy. She looked like her mother. I pressed call. It rang 4 times. 5. I was about to hang up when she answered. "Dad." Her voice was flat, guarded. The warmth that used to live there was buried under 2 weeks of silence and anger. "Hi, sweetheart," I said. Kept my voice soft, humble. "I know you asked for space. I've been respecting that, but I needed to hear your voice." Silence. I could hear her breathing, deciding. "How are you?" I asked. "Fine. Busy. We have parent-teacher conferences this week. I remember those. Longest weeks of the year. I paused. Let the silence breathe. Emma, I'm calling because I owe you an apology. A real one. Face to face. I was out of line at brunch. I said things I shouldn't have said. And I made accusations without evidence. That wasn't fair to you or to Craig. More silence. But the quality of it changed. Softer. Listening. I appreciate that, Dad, she said finally. Her voice thawed by a single degree. There's something else. I looked at the ring on the table, diamond sparkling. I found something. Your mother's ring. I heard her inhale. Sharp. Sudden. Mum's engagement ring? Yeah. I'd been looking for it for months. I thought maybe it got mixed up when I cleaned out the attic last spring. But it was in my dresser the whole time, wrapped in that blue velvet cloth she always used. Dad! Emma's voice cracked. Just slightly. I thought it was gone. It's here. It's safe. And it's yours. Your mother told me to give it to you. I've been waiting for the right moment, and I think now is it. I think she'd want you to have it. Emma was quiet. I could picture her standing in her kitchen, phone pressed to her ear, eyes filling. That ring meant everything to her. She'd watched Diane wear it every day of her childhood. She'd held Diane's hand in the hospital and touched it one last time before they took her mother away. I'd like to give it to you properly, I said. Dinner. Saturday evening. I'll make brisket. The 14-hour kind your mother used to beg me for. We'll sit down together. You, me, and Craig if he'd like to come. A proper family dinner. No arguments. No accusations. Just food and family. And your mother's ring. Saturday, she said softly. What time? 5:30. I heard muffled voices in the background. Emma covering the phone. Craig's voice, low and casual. I couldn't make out words, but the tone was easy, unconcerned. Why would he be concerned? As far as he knew, his father-in-law was just a harmless old teacher with suspicions nobody believed. Emma came back. Craig says he'd love to come. Perfect. Wonderful. I said. 5:30 Saturday. I'll have everything ready. Dad? Her voice softened another degree. Almost warm. Almost the Emma I knew before all this. Thank you. For the ring. For wanting to make things right. I love you, sweetheart. That's never going to change. I love you too, Dad. She hung up. I set the phone down and looked at Diane's ring sitting on the kitchen table. The diamond winked at me in the light, innocent and beautiful. 5 days. Saturday at 5:30, Emma and Craig would walk through my front door expecting reconciliation and a family heirloom. They'd expect brisket and apologies, and maybe even tears of joy when I placed that ring on Emma's finger. Instead, at 6:02, the television would turn on, and Craig Mitchell's carefully constructed world would burn to the ground on live television. I wrapped the ring back in its velvet cloth and placed it gently in the red box I'd bought at the jeweler last week. Then I set it on the counter and stared at it for a long moment. 5 days to prepare. 5 days to cook the perfect brisket, set the perfect table, and build the perfect trap. I picked up a pen and started making a list. Wednesday morning I woke at 4:30. Couldn't sleep past that anymore. My body knew something was coming, even if my mind tried to pretend otherwise. I lay in the dark listening to the house settle and thought about Diane. What she would say if she were here. What she would do. She'd probably do exactly what I was doing. She'd just be calmer about it. By 5 I was dressed and driving to Whole Foods on Lamar Boulevard. The store had just opened. Nearly empty, except for stock clerks and a few early runners grabbing smoothies. I walked straight to the meat counter and asked for a 14-pound prime brisket. The butcher wrapped it in brown paper and handed it over the counter like a sleeping baby. I loaded the cart with the rest. Yellow onions, heads of garlic, fresh rosemary and thyme, Worcestershire sauce, 2 bottles of decent red wine for the braise, russet potatoes, green beans, sourdough rolls from the bakery, a pecan pie because Emma loved pecan pie, and Diane always said no meal was complete without something sweet at the end. At the register, the cashier smiled and asked what the occasion was. "Family dinner," I said. "My daughter's coming over." She told me that sounded lovely. I thanked her and carried the bags to my truck. Back home, I unloaded everything and stood in my kitchen surveying the work ahead. The brisket wouldn't go in until Saturday morning at 4. 14 hours at 225 degrees. Low and slow. The Texas way. But everything else needed to be ready before then. Thursday I cleaned. I swept the hardwood floors, vacuumed the rugs, wiped down every surface. I cleaned the bathroom, changed the towels, scrubbed the kitchen sink until it gleamed. I dusted the living room shelves, the picture frames, the television screen. The house hadn't been this clean since Diane was alive. She would have approved. In the afternoon, I opened the china cabinet in the dining room. Diane's good set sat on the top shelf where it had been since the funeral. White porcelain with pale blue wildflowers along the edges. She bought it on our 20th anniversary at a little shop in Fredericksburg. Said it was too beautiful to use every day, so we saved it for special occasions. Thanksgiving, Christmas, Emma's birthday dinners. I took down each plate, each bowl, each saucer, and washed them by hand in warm, soapy water. Dried them with a soft cloth, and set them on the counter in a neat row. 6 plates. I only needed 3, but I washed them all anyway. It felt like the right thing to do. Thursday evening, I turned on the television and flipped to channel 36. KXAN. The 6 o'clock news was playing. Weather, traffic. A story about road construction on Mopac. I watched the screen and imagined what Saturday would look like. The logo appearing. Ray's voice. Craig's face. I switched to the input menu and tested the backup plan. I'd loaded everything onto a USB drive the night before. Every document Ray had shared with me. The IRS filings, the bank transfers, screenshots of Kristen's social media, the hotel receipts from Cabo, photos from the office wall. If for some reason the broadcast failed, if there was a technical glitch or a last-minute delay, I could plug the drive into the television and show Emma myself. The USB drive went into the drawer of the coffee table. Right there. Within arm's reach. Friday morning, I drove to a jewelry store on South Lamar and bought a small red velvet presentation box. The kind with a hinged lid and a satin pillow inside. Back home, I placed Diane's ring in the box and set it on the dining table at what would be Emma's seat. The diamond looked perfect against the white satin. Like it had been waiting 30 years for this exact moment. Friday evening, I seasoned the brisket. Coarse salt, black pepper, garlic powder, a touch of paprika. Diane's recipe. Written in her handwriting on a yellowed index card I kept in the spice drawer. I rubbed the meat down on both sides, wrapped it in plastic, and slid it into the refrigerator to rest overnight. Then I stood in my living room and rehearsed. I talked to the empty room, practiced my face, my voice, my timing. Before dessert, "There's something I want us all to watch together." I said it 10 times. 20, until it sounded natural. Until I could say it without my voice breaking. I practiced staying calm when Craig would inevitably explode. I practiced keeping my hands still when he raised his voice. I practiced looking at Emma and not falling apart when I saw the pain hit her face. I went to bed at 11, but didn't sleep until well past 1. When I finally drifted off, I dreamed about Diane. She was standing in this kitchen, wearing her blue apron, stirring something on the stove. She turned and looked at me with those warm brown eyes and said, "You're doing the right thing, Frank. It's going to hurt, but it's right." Saturday, 4 in the morning. The alarm pulled me out of a dreamless sleep. I padded to the kitchen in the dark, turned on the oven to 225, and slid the brisket in. Then I made coffee and sat at the table watching the sky lighten through the window. The hours crawled. I checked the brisket every hour, mopped it with apple cider vinegar and beef broth at 8, 10, 12. The smell filled the house gradually, rich and smoky. The scent of 100 family dinners compressed into one. At 3, I set the table. Diane's china. Cloth napkins. The deep blue ones from the linen closet. 3 wine glasses. Candles in the center. Unlit for now. The red velvet box at Emma's place setting. I stood back and looked at the table. Beautiful. Warm. Inviting. Like a celebration. At 4, I pulled the brisket. Let it rest under foil on the cutting board. The bark was perfect, dark, and crusty. The meat jiggled when I moved it. 14 hours. Perfect. At 5, I showered, shaved, put on a clean button-down and dark slacks, combed my hair, looked at myself in the bathroom mirror. An old man with tired eyes and steady hands. At 5:15, I turned on the television. Channel 36. Muted. An afternoon football game was playing. In 47 minutes, the game would end. The news would begin. And at 6:02, Ray Callahan's face would appear on screen. At 5:20, I lit the candles. Uncorked the wine to let it breathe. Sliced the brisket into thick, even pieces and arranged them on a platter. At 5:25, headlights swept across the living room curtains. An engine cut off in my driveway. 2 car doors opened and closed. Footsteps on the porch. The doorbell rang. I looked at the table. The ring. The candles. The television glowing silently on the wall. I looked at the coffee table drawer, where the USB drive waited. I looked at the clock on the wall. 5:26. 36 minutes. I walked to the front door, took one last breath, and opened it. Emma stood on my porch in a navy blue dress. Her hair down around her shoulders, the way Diane used to wear hers. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. She looked so much like her mother that the years collapsed, and I was 29 again. Opening the door to find Diane standing there for our first date. "Hi, Dad." Her smile was cautious, but real. A peace offering. "Come in, sweetheart." I pulled her into a hug and held on maybe a beat too long. She smelled like vanilla and lavender. When I let go, her eyes were already looking past me into the house, searching. Craig appeared behind her. Dark jeans, a charcoal blazer over a black shirt. His Rolex caught the porch light. He carried a bottle of wine in one hand and extended the other. "Walter." He grinned. "Good to see you, man. Thanks for having us." He'd called me Walter, not Dad. I noticed that now. I shook his hand and smiled back. The way you smile at a man whose world is about to collapse. Come in, dinner's ready." They stepped inside, and Emma's eyes found the dining table immediately. The candles, the china, the cloth napkins. And there, at her place setting, the red velvet box. She walked toward it slowly, one hand drifting to her mouth. "Dad, is that?" "Open it." Her fingers lifted the lid. The diamond caught the candlelight and threw tiny sparks across the tablecloth. Emma made a sound, half gasp, half sob. She pressed the box to her chest and turned to me with tears streaming. "Mom's ring." Her voice broke on the word Mom. "I thought you'd never find it." "It was waiting for you," I said. "She always wanted you to have it." Emma crossed the room and threw her arms around me. I felt her shoulders shake against my chest. Behind her, Craig stood with his hands in his pockets, watching us with an expression I couldn't quite read. Patient, maybe. Or bored. "Put it on," I said gently. Emma slid the ring onto her right hand. It fit perfectly. She held it up, watching the diamond sparkle, tears still wet on her cheeks. "It's beautiful," Craig said, stepping forward. He put his hand on Emma's shoulder. "Your mom had great taste. I wanted to break his fingers. Let's eat," I said instead. "Before the brisket gets cold." We sat down. Emma and Craig on one side, me across from them. I carved the brisket at the table, thick slices revealing the perfect pink smoke ring beneath the bark. Steam rose from the meat. I served roasted potatoes, green beans with almonds, warm sourdough rolls with butter. "Frank, this looks incredible," Craig said, already loading his plate. "You've outdone yourself." 14 hours in the smoker, I said. "Diane's recipe. Well, it shows." He took a bite and closed his eyes theatrically. "Man, that's restaurant quality." Emma ate quietly, still touching the ring on her finger every few seconds. She complimented the food, asked about my week. I gave her easy answers. Fixed a leaky faucet. Went for walks. Read a new book about the Battle of Gettysburg. Normal retired teacher talk. Craig, as always, filled the silences. He talked about work, about Bright Future's growth, about a new partnership with a tech company in Round Rock that was going to fund their after-school program. "We're looking at expanding into San Antonio next year," he said, reaching for his wine glass. "Maybe even Houston. The board is really excited about the trajectory." The board. 3 people. Craig, Kristen, and Dennis. I said nothing, just nodded and took another bite of brisket. "And the youth center in East Austin?" I asked. "Breaking ground in January." Craig leaned back, confident. "We secured the land last month. It's going to be our flagship location. State-of-the-art. Computer lab, recording studio, basketball court. Everything these kids deserve." I wondered how much of that was true. Probably none of it. But he said it with such conviction, such passion, that even knowing what I knew, part of me almost believed him. He was that good, that practiced, that dangerous. "That's amazing, babe," Emma said, squeezing his arm. "I'm so proud of you." Craig kissed her temple. "Couldn't do it without your support." I looked at the clock on the wall behind them. 5:47. 15 minutes. I poured more wine. Asked Craig about the tech partnership. Let him talk. He loved talking. Loved the sound of his own voice, painting pictures of a future that didn't exist. Every word was a performance. Every smile was a mask. 5:52. Emma asked about the pecan pie. I told her it was on the kitchen counter, ready for after dinner. She laughed and said she might skip straight to dessert. For a moment it felt like any other family dinner. Warm, easy, full of love. And I hated myself for what I was about to do to it. 5:56. Craig refilled his glass and raised it. "You know what? I want to make a toast." Emma lifted hers. I lifted mine. "To family," Craig said, his eyes sweeping between us. "To second chances. To honesty and trust and everything that holds us together." He smiled at me directly. "And to you, Frank, for opening your door and your heart tonight. It means more than you know. To honesty." The word tasted like poison in my mouth. I clinked my glass against his and took a sip. The wine was expensive. Probably $80. Probably bought with Emma's money. 5:58. I set my glass down. My heart was hammering now, but my hands were steady. 35 years of standing in front of classrooms full of teenagers had taught me how to keep a calm exterior when everything inside was chaos. 5:59. The muted television on the living room wall showed a commercial break. The football game had ended 20 minutes ago. The 6 o'clock news was about to begin. 600. I looked at Emma, at her mother's ring on her finger, at her trusting eyes and her easy smile. In 2 minutes, that smile would be gone. Maybe forever. I looked at Craig, at his Rolex, his blazer, his confident posture, his complete, absolute certainty that he was in control of everything. 6:01. I pushed back from the table slowly. "Before dessert," I said, my voice steady, measured, the same tone I used when delivering a lecture on something that mattered. "There's something I'd like us all to watch together." Emma looked confused. Craig tilted his head slightly, amused. I stood up, walked to the living room, and picked up the remote from the coffee table. The television was already on channel 36. Already muted. All I had to do was press one button. I turned to face them. Emma and Craig still sat at the dining table, candles flickering between the remains of dinner. Diane's china, the velvet box, the wine glasses, everything beautiful and warm and about to shatter. "Dad?" Emma said. "What is this?" I looked at the clock one last time. 6:02. I pressed unmute. The KXAN logo filled the screen. A deep blue graphic with the words KXAN Investigate sliding in from the left. A drumbeat of tension music. Then Ray Callahan's face appeared, serious and composed, standing outside a building I recognized immediately. 712 Congress Avenue. "Good evening. I'm Ray Callahan. Tonight, a KXAN investigation into a local charity that claims to help underprivileged children in East Austin. But our months-long investigation has uncovered a pattern of fraud, embezzlement, and deception that has cost donors hundreds of thousands of dollars. This is the story of Bright Future Foundation and the people who turn generosity into personal profit." The screen cut to gala footage. The JW Marriott Ballroom, chandeliers, champagne, the jazz quartet. And there, walking onto the stage under a spotlight, was Craig Mitchell. His name appeared in white text at the bottom of the screen. Craig Mitchell, Co-Executive Director, Bright Future Foundation. Beside him, arm linked through his, Kristen Avery. Her name appeared too. The footage showed them smiling, waving. Craig at the microphone, giving his speech about community and legacy. The audience applauding. I heard Emma inhale sharply behind me. I didn't turn around. Ray's voiceover continued. Craig Mitchell and Kristen Avery run Bright Future Foundation together. They present themselves as passionate advocates for Austin's youth. But financial records tell a very different story. The screen filled with a chart. Total donations received, $452,000. A red bar showed program expenses, $36,000, 8%. The remaining 92% was broken into categories: salaries, travel, entertainment, consultant fees. Each one, highlighted in yellow. Of every dollar donated to Bright Future, only 8 cents reaches the children the foundation claims to serve. The rest goes to salaries, personal expenses, and payments to shell companies controlled by the directors themselves. Another chart appeared. Craig Mitchell, salary $95,000. Kristen Avery, salary $88,000. Avery Events, LLC. Consultant fees, $120,000. Over 2 years. Total personal benefit to directors, over $400,000. "Dad." Emma's voice was small, shaking. "What is this?" I still didn't turn around. I kept my eyes on the screen. The footage shifted. Security camera images of Craig and Kristen entering an apartment building. Ray's voice identified it. "This luxury penthouse on Rainey Street in downtown Austin rents for $3,500 a month. It's leased in Kristen Avery's name, but our investigation found the rent is paid from Craig Mitchell's personal bank account at Frost Bank, the same account that receives transfers from Bright Future's operating funds." Then came the photos. Craig and Kristen on a beach. Caption: Cabo San Lucas, September. Craig and Kristen at a rooftop restaurant. Craig and Kristen at what looked like a first-class airline check-in counter. Each photo appeared for 3 seconds, then dissolved into the next. "Turn it off." Craig's voice exploded behind me. I heard him stand. The chair scraped violently against the floor. I didn't move. I held the remote at my side and kept watching. "Frank, turn it off." "Now." I said nothing. On screen, Ray appeared again, this time sitting across from a series of donors. A middle-aged woman wiping tears. "I gave $5,000. I thought it was going to help kids." An elderly man shaking his head. "I feel like a fool. I trusted them." A young couple holding hands. "We donated our wedding gift money. All of it." Then the screen changed again. A new location. I recognized it immediately. The faded stucco, the cracked parking lot, the hand-painted sign. Shady Oaks Care Home. Ray's voice dropped lower, softer. But perhaps the most heartbreaking part of this story isn't about donors. It's about family. Gloria appeared on screen, sitting in her plastic lawn chair in that tiny room, the broken ceiling fan visible above her. She looked directly into the camera with those pale blue eyes. "My son hasn't visited me in 8 months," Gloria said, her voice thin but steady. "He told me he'd move me somewhere nicer. He promised me a new television. He told me not to answer the phone when my daughter-in-law called." She paused. "I haven't received any money from him. I pay for everything with Social Security. $1,100. That's all I have." I heard Emma sob. A single, broken sound. Ray's voice returned over a shot of financial documents. Craig Mitchell's daughter-in-law, who we are not identifying to protect her privacy, gave Mitchell $50,000 over 2 years. She believed the money was paying off his student loans. But records show those loans were paid in full in 2019, 2 years before she began sending money. Our investigation traced over $11,000 from Mitchell's accounts to jewelry purchases, luxury hotels, and high-end restaurants, all connected to his relationship with Kristen Avery. The screen showed bank statements, highlighted transfers, a receipt from a jeweler in the Domain, a hotel booking in Aspen, each one a nail in Craig's coffin. The final segment began. Ray stood outside the Travis County Courthouse. Wind ruffled his hair. His expression was grave. "KXAN has turned over our findings to the Travis County District Attorney's Office and the FBI's Public Corruption Unit. Sources tell us an arrest warrant is being prepared. Craig Mitchell and Kristen Avery face potential charges of wire fraud, tax evasion, embezzlement, and theft by deception." The segment ended with the KXAN Investigates logo and a phone number for donors who believed they'd been defrauded. Then a commercial break began. A car dealership ad. Bright, loud, absurd against the silence in my living room. I pressed mute. The room was completely still. The candles on the dining table still flickered. The remains of brisket sat on Diane's china. The wine glasses held their last inch of red. Everything looked exactly the same as it had 12 minutes ago. But nothing was the same. I turned around slowly. Emma sat frozen at the table. Her face was white, completely drained of color. Her hands gripped the edge of the tablecloth, knuckles bone white. Diane's ring caught the candlelight on her trembling finger. Her eyes were locked on the television screen, even though it was muted now, even though there was nothing left to see. Craig stood 3 feet from the table. His face was a mask of fury and panic. His jaw was clenched so hard I could see the muscles jumping beneath his skin. His fists were balled at his sides. His eyes darted between me, the television, and the front door, like a trapped animal calculating escape routes. Nobody spoke. The silence stretched for 5 seconds. 10. 15. Then Emma turned her head. Slowly, mechanically, like a woman moving through water. She looked at Craig, and in a voice I barely recognized, a voice stripped of everything except raw, bleeding need, she said one word. "Who?" Craig's mouth opened. Nothing came out. "Who is she?" Emma whispered, and in that silence, in the space where Craig's answer should have been, I watched my daughter's world collapse. Craig moved first. Not toward Emma. Toward me. He crossed the living room in 3 fast strides, his finger jabbing at my chest. "You." His voice was low, shaking with rage. "You did this. You went behind my back. You went to a reporter. You destroyed my life." I didn't step back. I stood my ground and looked him dead in the eyes. "I didn't destroy anything, Craig. I just turned on the television. Don't play games with me, old man." His face was inches from mine. I could smell the wine on his breath, see the vein pulsing at his temple. "You've been digging, going to my office, talking to my mother, setting this whole thing up like some kind of sick trap." "It's not a trap." I said calmly. It's the truth. The truth? He shouted it so loud the wine glasses on the table rattled. You don't know anything about my truth. You're a retired teacher who can't let go of his daughter. You've hated me from day one and you've been looking for any excuse to tear us apart. Craig. Emma's voice cut through like a blade. Quiet. Lethal. Stop talking to my father. He spun around. The fury in his face shifted, rearranged itself into something softer, desperate. He dropped to his knees in front of her chair and grabbed her hands. Emma, baby, listen to me, please. That broadcast was lies. It's a hit piece. That reporter has an agenda. He's been trying to take down nonprofits for years. None of what he said is true. Emma stared down at him. Her hands were limp in his grip. She didn't pull away. She didn't squeeze back. The woman, she said. On the stage. In the photos. Who is she? Kristen is my colleague. That's all. We work together. We go to events together. It's part of the job. It looks intimate on camera, but it's not. I swear to God, Emma. She means nothing to me. He introduced her as the love of his life at your office Christmas party. I said from behind him. Your coworker Dennis told me. He said you're planning to propose. Craig's head whipped toward me. You talked to Dennis? What did you? How dare you go to my... Is it true? Emma's voice again. Still quiet. Still deadly. Did you call her the love of your life? Craig turned back to her. His mask was slipping. I could see it in real time. The confident facade cracking at the edges, revealing something desperate and ugly underneath. Emma, you have to understand. The foundation world is about relationships, about image. Kristen and I present a united front because it helps with donors. It's a performance. That's all it is. A performance. Emma pulled her hands free from his grip. You kissed her on stage. In front of 300 people. It was for the donors. It was. You took her to Cabo. A work retreat. Planning sessions. Nothing happened. $3,500 a month for her apartment. Your bank account. The one I didn't know about. Craig's mouth opened and closed. The excuses were running out. I could see him calculating, searching for the next lie, the next angle. But there were too many facts, too many receipts, too many photos he couldn't explain away. The $50,000, Emma said. Her voice was barely a whisper now, but it filled the room like thunder. I gave you $50,000. For your student loans, Emma. Your loans were paid off in 2019. Your parents paid them. 2 years before I gave you the first dollar. Silence. Where did my money go, Craig? He stood up slowly. Backed away from her. His hand went to his hair, gripping it, pulling. The polished exterior was gone. What was left was something raw and cornered and mean. You want to know? His voice changed. Dropped the pleading tone. Something cold slid into its place. You really want to know the truth? Yes. Emma said. Craig laughed. Short, bitter, ugly. Fine. You want the truth? Here it is. He spread his arms wide like a man giving a sermon. I was broke, completely broke. 37 years old with a master's degree and $80,000 in debt. Credit cards maxed out. Loan sharks calling. I couldn't afford groceries, Emma. And then I met you. Emma flinched. You were perfect. Craig continued, his voice gaining a cruel momentum. Steady job. Good salary. No debt. Trusting. So trusting. You believed everything I told you because you wanted to believe. You wanted the fairy tale. The husband who adored you. The life that looked good on paper. Stop. Emma whispered. No. You asked for the truth. Here it is. He stepped closer to her. You were a paycheck to me. A reliable, predictable, boring paycheck. I needed your money to build something real. Bright future. Kristen, My actual life. The life that mattered. Emma's face crumpled. Tears poured down her cheeks, but she didn't look away from him. She held his gaze like a woman refusing to drown. "And your mother?" I asked from behind him. My voice was ice. "What about Gloria?" Craig turned to me with a sneer. "What about her? She's 74 years old, sitting in a box in San Marcos. She's lived her life. She's not my responsibility anymore. Why would I waste money on someone who's just waiting to die?" The words hung in the air like smoke from a fire. Emma stood up. Slowly. Her chair scraped against the floor. She was trembling from head to toe, but her spine was straight. She looked at Craig, the way you look at something dead on the road. Something that used to be alive but isn't anymore. Then her hand came up fast. The slap connected with his cheek so hard, his head snapped sideways. The sound cracked through the room like a gunshot. Diane's ring caught his skin and left a thin line of red across his cheekbone. Craig touched his face, looked at the blood on his fingers. Then he smiled. A terrible smile. "Feel better?" he asked. "Get out," I said. I walked to the front door and opened it. The October night poured in, cool and dark. "Get out of my house. Don't come back." Craig straightened his blazer, adjusted his cuffs, smoothed his hair. Even now, even with blood on his cheek and his life in ruins, he couldn't stop performing. He walked toward the door. But at the threshold, he stopped and turned back to look at Emma one last time. "You know what's funny?" he said. "You'll never find anyone else. You're 34 years old with no savings, no house equity worth anything, and a personality that puts people to sleep. I was the best thing that ever happened to you." He smiled that dead smile again. "And you were too stupid to even know you were being robbed." Emma said nothing. Just stood there with her mother's ring on her hand and tears on her face and a look in her eyes that I'll never forget. Not rage, not grief. Something beyond both. Something that had no name. I put my hand on Craig's chest and pushed him backward onto the porch. He stumbled but caught himself. "If you contact her again," I said quietly, "I'll make sure the DA adds harassment to the charges." Craig held my gaze for one more second. Then he turned, walked to his Tesla, got in, and drove away. The taillights disappeared around the corner, and the street went dark. I closed the door. Behind me, I heard Emma's knees hit the floor. I didn't rush to her. Every instinct told me to run across the room and scoop her up the way I did when she was 5 and fell off her bicycle. But she wasn't 5 anymore. And this wasn't a scraped knee. I walked over slowly and knelt beside her on the hardwood floor. She was on her hands and knees, head hanging, hair falling around her face like a curtain. Her breathing came in short, ragged bursts. Not crying yet. Something before crying. Something deeper. "Emma." "I'm here." She didn't respond. I placed my hand on her back and felt her ribs heaving. Then the sound came. A wail that started deep in her chest and tore its way out. Raw, animal. A sound I'd only heard once before, in a hospital room 3 years ago when the doctors told us Diane was gone. I sat on the floor and pulled her into my arms. She collapsed against my chest, shaking with sobs so violent, I thought she might break apart. I held her tight, one hand cradling the back of her head. I didn't speak. There were no words for this. We stayed on the floor for a long time. The candles burned lower. The brisket cooled. Diane's china sat untouched. Outside, houses turned off their lights one by one. Eventually, the sobs slowed. Emma pulled back but didn't stand, just sat there staring at her hands. At her mother's ring, I stood, went to the kitchen, filled the kettle, found the chamomile tea that had been there since Diane was alive. She bought it by the case, said there wasn't a problem that couldn't be softened by chamomile with honey. I made 2 mugs and carried them back. Set one near Emma and sat in my armchair with the other. 20 minutes passed. Tea cooling untouched. I waited, patient. the way Diane would have been. At 9:15, Emma spoke. Hoarse. Barely audible. How long? 2.5 weeks, I said quietly. Since the gala. You tried to tell me that Sunday. Yes, and I threw you out. A bitter sound. I chose him over you, and now you know. That's what matters. Silence. Then, $50,000. Her voice cracked. I worked so hard, Dad. 2 years. Extra classes. Saturday tutoring. Summer school. I said no to everything. No trips. No clothes. I brown-bagged lunch every day for 2 years. She swallowed. And he took it like I was nothing. You're not nothing, Emma. She looked up. Eyes swollen, devastated, but also ashamed. How could I be so stupid? You weren't stupid. You loved him. You trusted him. That's his failure, not yours. It's the same thing. She whispered. No. I leaned forward. You loved honestly. He lied. There's a difference. She pressed her palms against her eyes. I can still hear him. Boring. Predictable. A paycheck. A choked sound. He called his own mother, someone just waiting to die. That tells you who he is. Not who you are. She reached for the tea finally. Lifted it with both hands and took a small sip. Then another. The chamomile seemed to anchor her. She held the warm mug against her chest like a small shield. I can't go home, she said. I can't go back to that house. Then stay here. Your room is upstairs. Same as always. She looked at me with an expression I hadn't seen since she was a teenager. Vulnerable. Young. Needing permission. Is that okay? This is your home, Emma. Always has been. Always will be. Stay as long as you need. She nodded. Set the tea down. Stood on unsteady legs and walked to the staircase, one hand on the railing, climbing each step like it took everything she had. At the top, she turned left. Her old bedroom, the door creaked open and clicked shut. I sat in my armchair a while longer. Looked at the dining table. Diane's china. Half-eaten dinner. Empty velvet box. Candles burned to stubs. I should clean up. But I couldn't move. Eventually, I turned off the lights and climbed the stairs. At the top of the hallway, I stopped outside Emma's door. Listened. Crying. Soft. Muffled. The kind where someone buries their face in a pillow so no one else has to hear. The sound of a woman trying to hold herself together in private. The sound Diane used to make in the bathroom during those last months when she didn't want me to know. I sank down against the hallway wall. Floor hard. Wall cold against my back. Each muffled sob, landing like a small fist against my chest. I didn't go in. Some grief is too raw to be witnessed. Sometimes the kindest thing is to let someone fall apart alone. But I wouldn't leave. I'd sit here all night, right outside her door. Close enough that if she opened it, she'd know I was there. The clock downstairs chimed 10, 11, midnight. The crying faded to silence around 1:30. I sat there another half hour, listening to the house settle. The creak of old floorboards, the hum of the refrigerator. At 2 in the morning I was still there, back against the wall, eyes open in the dark, thinking about Diane. What she'd say if she could see us. Her husband on the floor, her daughter behind a locked door, her ring on Emma's hand. She'd say, "You did the right thing. Now do the hard part. Be there tomorrow, and the day after, and every day, until she finds her way back." I closed my eyes. I would be there. As long as it took. 6:30 Sunday morning. I was in the kitchen making coffee when I heard footsteps on the stairs. Slow. Deliberate. I turned and saw Emma standing in the doorway. Hair tangled, eyes swollen to slits. Still wearing last night's navy dress, now wrinkled and creased from sleeping in it. But she was standing straight. Shoulders back, And when she spoke, her voice had something in it that wasn't there last night. Something hard and clear like a bell struck once in a quiet room. "Dad, I need a lawyer." 4 words. And with them, I knew my daughter was going to survive this. "I'll make some calls," I said. "Sit down. Eat something first." She shook her head. "I can't eat. But I'll take coffee." I poured her a mug, and we sat at the kitchen table together. The morning light came through the window, warm and gold. She held the coffee with both hands, staring into it. Then she looked up at me. "I'm not going to cry anymore," she said. "Not about him. He doesn't deserve it." I reached across the table and squeezed her hand. She squeezed back. By 9 o'clock, things started moving fast. I called Ray first. He answered on the second ring. "Frank, how did it go last night?" "He's gone," I said. "Emma knows everything. She needs a lawyer." "Diana Reeves," Ray said without hesitation. "Best divorce attorney in Austin. She handles fraud-related cases. I'll text you her number. Tell her I sent you." The text came through 30 seconds later. I called Diana Reeves and had an appointment for Monday morning at 10, but the broadcast had already set something bigger in motion. By Sunday afternoon, Ray texted me again. "Segment's gone viral. 52,000 shares on social media. KXAN website crashed twice from traffic." My phone hasn't stopped ringing. Monday morning, Emma and I sat in Diana Reeves's office on 6th Street. She was in her 50s, silver-haired, sharp-eyed, the kind of woman who made you feel safe and terrified at the same time. She reviewed the evidence in 20 minutes flat. "This is comprehensive," she said, tapping the folder. "Fraud, embezzlement, theft by deception. The criminal case will strengthen your divorce filing significantly." She looked at Emma. "We're filing today. I'm requesting emergency asset freeze, full possession of the marital home, and restitution of the $50,000. Emma nodded. "How long?" "If he doesn't contest, 6 to 8 weeks. Given the criminal exposure, my guess is he'll sign fast to avoid additional complications." She was right. But not in the way any of us expected. Tuesday morning at 7:15, my phone rang. Ray's number. "Turn on the news," he said. "Channel 36. Right now." I grabbed the remote and hit power. KXAN's morning anchor was mid-sentence. "Austin Police Department has confirmed the arrest of Craig Mitchell, 39, at Austin Bergstrom International Airport early this morning. Mitchell, the subject of a KXAN investigation into fraud at local nonprofit Bright Future Foundation, was detained at Gate 23 while attempting to board a flight to Cancun, Mexico. The screen showed security camera footage. Craig, in a gray hoodie and baseball cap, being led away from the gate by 2 uniformed officers. His hands were cuffed behind his back. His face was turned away from the camera, but I recognized the posture. The slouch of a man whose performance had finally ended. "Flight risk," Ray said on the phone. He booked the ticket Sunday night with a one-way purchase. Cash. TSA flagged it and called APD. Warrant was already active. Emma appeared in the kitchen doorway. She'd heard the television. She stood there watching the footage of her husband being walked through the terminal in handcuffs. Her expression was unreadable. Not satisfaction. Not grief. Something in between. "Good," she said quietly. Then she turned and went back upstairs. Wednesday brought more news. The FBI's Public Corruption Unit formally opened an investigation into Bright Future Foundation. Wire fraud. Tax evasion. Embezzlement. Kristen Avery was served with a subpoena at her Rainey Street apartment. Dennis Park was questioned and released, cooperative, apparently genuinely shocked by what his bosses had been doing. Craig's bail hearing was Thursday. The judge denied bail. Flight risk, given the airport incident. He'd remain in Travis County Jail, pending trial. By Friday, Diana Reeves had the divorce papers ready. She drove them to the jail herself. Craig signed without a single objection. No negotiation. No counteroffers. Just his signature on every page, handed back through the slot in the plexiglass visitor window. He didn't even read them. Diana told us on the phone. Just signed and slid them back. I think he knows fighting this makes everything worse. The asset freeze revealed more than we expected. Craig had a savings account none of us knew about. $43,000. Diana argued it was derived from fraud and Emma's stolen funds. The judge agreed. Emma received the marital home, the contents, and $40,000 from Craig's frozen assets after legal fees. It wasn't $50,000. It wasn't everything he'd taken. But it was something. 2 weeks later, the divorce was final. Emma held the decree in the kitchen, standing in the same spot where she'd first said, "I need a lawyer." She stared at the document for a long time, the official seal, the judge's signature, the date that marked the end of 4 years of lies. "I'm free," she said. I looked at her face, searching for the hollowness that had been there when she'd whispered those same words the night of the broadcast. But it wasn't there. Her voice was steady. Her eyes were clear. Her shoulders were straight. "I'm free," she said again. And this time, it wasn't a question. It wasn't hope or desperation or grief dressed up as relief. It was a fact. Simple and solid and true. I pulled her into a hug. She held on tight, but she wasn't shaking. She wasn't crying. She was just there. Present. Whole. "What happens to Craig?" she asked, pulling back. "Diana says the DA is pushing for federal charges. Wire fraud carries up to 20 years. With the embezzlement and tax evasion on top, his lawyer's probably negotiating a plea deal. 4 to 7 years is Ray's guess." Emma nodded slowly. "And Kristen?" Subpoenaed. "Cooperating. Probably won't do time, but her career is finished." Emma looked down at the divorce decree one more time. Then she folded it carefully, slid it into an envelope, and placed it in the kitchen drawer. "I want to see Gloria," she said. I smiled. For the first time in weeks, I smiled and meant it. "Whenever you're ready, sweetheart." A month passed before Emma was ready. She went back to work, threw herself into lesson plans and the safe rhythm of a classroom full of 10-year-olds who needed her. She started therapy on Tuesday evenings, listed the Cedar Park house with a realtor. She didn't talk about Craig. Not once. His name became a silence. We moved around without acknowledging. Then one Saturday morning in late November, she came downstairs with her car keys. "I'm going to see Gloria today. Will you come?" Of course. We stopped at a department store on the way. Emma filled a cart with purpose. A thick fleece blanket, sage green, a portable space heater with automatic shutoff, warm pajamas, wool socks, a box of assorted teas, a crossword puzzle book, and at the last minute, she turned down the electronics aisle and picked up a 32-inch flat-screen television. She said hers only shows green and pink. Emma said quietly, "She paid for everything herself." When I reached for my wallet, she shook her head. "I need to do this, Dad." We drove south on I-35. 45 minutes of hill country rolling past. Emma drove in silence, both hands on the wheel. Some drives are meant for thinking. We pulled into Shady Oaks just before 11. Emma sat in the car staring at the building. Cracked asphalt, faded stucco, the scraggly tree. "This is where she lives?" Her voice was tight. "Yeah. Craig told me it had gardens and a recreation room." She closed her eyes. I should have visited myself. We carried the bags inside. I led Emma down the hallway to room 8. Knocked gently. "Mrs. Mitchell?" "It's Frank. I brought someone to see you. Come in." Gloria sat in her plastic chair by the window. Same house address. Same cardigan. But when she saw Emma, her hands flew to her mouth. "Emma." The word came out broken. "Oh, Emma." Emma crossed the room and dropped to her knees beside the chair. She took Gloria's hands and held them tight. "I'm here. I'm so sorry it took so long. Gloria cupped Emma's face with trembling fingers. My sweet girl. You look just like your mother. Everyone says that. Because it's true. Gloria stroked her cheek. Is everything all right? Emma glanced at me, then back. I know what Craig did. All of it. The money. The lies. The foundation. She paused. And I know he hasn't been taking care of you. That he told you to stop answering my calls. Gloria's face crumpled. I should have told you. I should have answered the phone. You have nothing to be sorry for. He lied to both of us. But that's over now. Emma unpacked the bags, plugged in the space heater, draped the blanket over Gloria's lap, stacked pajamas in the dresser, set tea on the nightstand. Then she replaced the ancient television with the new one and turned it on. Crisp, bright, full color. A cooking show appeared. Gloria stared. Oh my. I forgot what colors looked like. Emma knelt beside her again. Gloria, listen to me. This room isn't good enough for you. The broken fan, the window, that chair. She glanced at the plastic lawn chair. You deserve better. I'm fine, dear. I don't want to be a burden. You're not a burden. You're family. Emma took her hands. There's a place called Sunrise Senior Living. 20 minutes from Dad's house. Clean rooms, good food, a garden, staff who care. I've already toured it. There's a room available. I can't afford. I'm covering it. It's already arranged. Gloria looked between us. But why? After everything Craig did, why would you take care of me? Because Craig's choices aren't yours. You've been alone here for months because of him. That ends today. Gloria pulled Emma into a hug. Thin arms shaking. Thank you. Thank you. I stood by the door watching. My chest tight but not with pain. Pride. Relief. Watching someone choose kindness when they had every reason to choose bitterness. 2 weeks later, we moved Gloria out. Her belongings fit in 3 small boxes. Emma drove Gloria in her car. They talked the entire 45 minutes, like old friends. Sunrise Senior Living was everything Shady Oaks wasn't. Bright hallways, large windows, a courtyard garden with rose bushes and a fountain. Gloria's room had a real bed, a proper armchair, a window overlooking the garden, and air conditioning that worked. When we finished setting up, Gloria sat in her new armchair and looked around, touched the blanket on the bed, watched a cardinal land on the fountain outside. I never thought I'd have something like this, she said softly. Emma sat on the arm of the chair. You deserve it. We're going to visit every week. I promise. Gloria reached up and took Emma's hand, held it against her cheek. You're the daughter I always wished I had. Emma's eyes filled, but she smiled. A real smile. The first one that reached her eyes since before any of this started. At the door, Gloria stood at her window waving as we walked to the car. Small figure in her new room, surrounded by warmth and light. In the car, Emma turned to me. Thank you, Dad, for showing me what needed to be done. You're the one who did it. She shook her head. We did it together. We drove home in comfortable silence. Texas sky wide and blue above us. And for the first time since that night at the gala, something in my chest loosened. Something clenched tight, for weeks, finally let go. My daughter was going to be okay. I knew it the way I knew the sun would rise tomorrow. Not because the pain was gone, but because she'd chosen to move through it. Chosen kindness over bitterness. Chosen to help someone else, even while her own wounds were still healing. That's strength. The real kind. The kind Diane always had. And watching Emma drive us home that afternoon, her mother's ring catching the sunlight on her hand, I saw Diane in her more clearly than ever. Winter in Austin doesn't bite the way it does up north. No snow, no ice storms, just a damp cold that settles into your bones on certain mornings, and a sky that turns the color of old pewter for days at a time. December faded into January, and January into February. The live oaks kept their leaves. The grackles still congregated in parking lots at dusk, screaming at each other like angry neighbors. Life went on. Emma had been living with me for 3 months when I started noticing the small changes. The way she hummed while making coffee in the morning. The way she left her bedroom door open instead of closed. The way she laughed at something on television one evening. A real laugh, sudden and surprised, like she'd forgotten she was capable of it, and the sound startled her as much as it did me. She went back to work in January. Her principal had given her the rest of the semester off, no questions asked. But Emma refused. Said she needed the routine. Needed the kids. 32 fourth graders who didn't know anything about her personal life, and just needed her to explain long division and read them stories after lunch. Her colleagues welcomed her back quietly. No fanfare, no awkward questions. Just a card on her desk signed by the whole staff and a fresh pot of coffee in the teacher's lounge. She told me about it that evening, and I saw something flicker across her face. Gratitude. The kind that comes when you realize the world didn't stop turning while you fell apart. Therapy was Tuesday evenings. She never told me what they talked about and I never asked. But I could see it working. The sharpness in her jaw softened week by week. The way she flinched when her phone rang gradually stopped. She started sleeping through the night without the light on. In February, the Cedar Park house sold. A young couple from Dallas, relocating for work. They loved the red brick and the flower beds Emma had planted. The sale closed in 18 days. Net profit after the mortgage, $95,000. Emma deposited it into a new account with only her name on it. Her first account without Craig's fingerprints anywhere near it. It's not what I lost, she told me the day the funds cleared. But it's a start. She visited Gloria every Sunday. Brought flowers from the farmer's market. Did crossword puzzles together in the garden at sunrise. Watched cooking shows on the new television. Gloria was blooming in that place. Color in her cheeks. Weight on her bones. A new cardigan Emma bought her in robin's egg blue. The staff adored her. One Sunday, Gloria told Emma she'd started a watercolor class offered by the facility. She held up a small painting of a cardinal on a fence post, the colors slightly wobbly, but bright and alive. I haven't painted since I was 30, Gloria said, beaming. Emma hung it on Gloria's wall with a thumbtack and stepped back to admire it. It's beautiful, she said, and meant it. Then one Friday evening in late February, I came home from the hardware store to find something unexpected. The kitchen was warm and full of light. Every burner on the stove was occupied. A pot of mashed potatoes, green beans with garlic, gravy simmering in a saucepan. And in the oven, wrapped in foil, a brisket, smaller than mine, maybe 6 pounds. But the smell that filled the house was unmistakable. Emma stood at the counter in Diane's blue apron, the one with the faded sunflowers on the pocket. Her hair was pulled back, a smudge of flour on her cheek. She looked up when I walked in and smiled. I'm cooking tonight, she said. Sit down. I sat at the kitchen table and watched her work. She moved around the kitchen with a confidence I hadn't seen in months. Checking the brisket, tasting the gravy, adjusting the heat under the green beans. She'd learned to cook from Diane, side by side at this very counter, and watching her now was like watching a ghost come back to life. She served dinner at 7. The brisket was good. Not perfect. A little dry on the edges, slightly oversalted. But I ate every bite and told her it was the best I'd ever had. Liar, she said, grinning. It's not as good as yours. It's better, I said. Because you made it. We ate together at the kitchen table, just the two of us. No candles, no china, just paper napkins and the everyday plates and 2 glasses of iced tea. We talked about her students, about a field trip she was planning to the Bullock Museum, about Gloria's watercolor class. Normal things. Easy things. The kind of conversation that doesn't carry any weight, except the weight of 2 people being present with each other. After dinner, while Emma washed dishes, I went to my bedroom and came back with the red velvet box. I set it on the table without a word. Emma turned from the sink, drying her hands. Saw the box. Her breath caught. Dad, you already gave me this. I gave you the ring. But I never said what your mother told me to say when I gave it. I opened the box. The diamond sat on its white satin pillow, catching the kitchen light. She said to tell you that this ring saw 31 years of marriage, that it knows what love looks like. Real love. The kind that stays, even when it's hard. Emma's eyes filled. She didn't wipe the tears away. Just let them fall. She said to tell you, it's not about the man who gives you a ring. It's about the woman who wears it. What she chooses. What she stands for. What she refuses to accept. I closed the box and pushed it toward her. You stood up, Emma. You refused to accept the lie. Your mother would be so proud of you. Emma picked up the box and held it against her chest. Mom would be proud of you, Dad. Her voice was thick. You fought for me when I wouldn't fight for myself. That's what family does. She set the box down, crossed the kitchen, and hugged me. Long and tight. No shaking. No sobs. Just warmth and gratitude. And something that felt like the end of a very long winter. Later that evening, I sat in my armchair reading while Emma cleaned up the last of the kitchen. And then I heard it. Soft at first. Almost inaudible. A melody. A song Diane used to sing while she cooked. An old hymn. Nothing fancy. Just something she'd learned from her grandmother. And hummed 1,000 times in this kitchen over 30 years. Emma was singing it. Quietly, almost to herself, as she wiped down the counters and put away the last clean plate. I set my book down and listened. The melody drifted through the house like something carried on a warm breeze. Familiar. Sacred. Alive. I didn't move. I just sat there in my armchair, eyes closed, listening to my daughter sing her mother's song in her mother's kitchen. And for the first time since Diane died, the house felt full again.